Good morning, guys. I do realize it is 1:04 a.m. my time. I see that Unscripted Chronicles is here. If you are not subscribed to her, please do. I cannot believe she is still awake, considering it is probably 2 or 3 where she is. It's just kind of like a heavy night. I mean, we watch a lot of stuff on TV of, everyone's missing, and it's really sad, and it does weigh at your heart, whether you want to believe it doesn't. It does. But with that being said, I don't have a mod in here that I being here now, I'm going to listen in the bushes. I don't blame me. I tried to go to sleep. I couldn't. There's a lot just and you're gonna kind of hear them off a little bit. I kind of got a few issues going on. What else is new, right? But I just couldn't sleep, and I just wanted to get out some of these cold cases because with all of the media that's facing these people right now, could you imagine having a loved one missing right now? And all of that panic and that tragedy. I'm echoing. Oh goodness. Okay. How about how about now? Is that better? It may not be better. I know my earbuds are near my computer, so that's probably it. Guys, if I'm still echoing, please let me know. I don't mean to. Am I better? Okay. All right. Good deal. I think when my earbuds are next to my mic, it seems to do that because, it's weird like that. Okay, so guys, what we're going to do today is we're just going to talk about some unsolved cold cases. And the way I do this is I want to talk about the person before the tragedy. If anything else that I want to be remembered for, it's not how I died. So that's kind of what I do on these late nights. And like I said, I am kind of a little bit off here and there, with a lot's been going on lately, but just bear with me and I'm sure we'll have a good time. Please be respectful to each other in chat. That's all I ask. Respect the victim. No name calling. If you have to act like a child, put yourself in the corner. I really am tired. I really don't feel like doing that tonight, but I will if I have to. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. As you can see, we have Michael Baker. Now, this is a story that's part of a collaborative project between Project Cold Case and the University of North Florida's Applied Journalism class, which I absolutely love that they get together and they do this because it shows me that they care. Now, Michael Baker has always extended help and care to all of those around him. He would give the clothes off of his back, even if it meant that he had to help one of his friends succeed. Now, one day he came home with no shoes on his feet. Now, his mom, Tiffany's like, "Where's your shoes?" Of course. And she asked him where they had gone. And he said he had given them to his friend so his friend would be able to have shoes for work that day. I mean, that sounds like an amazing, amazing guy. Sorry, guys, you're going to hear me drinking coffee along the way. Now, his friends have been without this generosity for over a decade. And in this case, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, said Tiffany after attending a friend's viewing on July 20th, 2013, at the young age of 22. Now, Michael was found lying dead in front of a Hollywood, Florida home. Although details of that night are mostly unknown, his murder has never been solved. Now, Michael grew up in Hollywood in a blended family of 9 siblings. He was the youngest son and very much treated like a baby. He loved Jim Carrey, and it was just one of his favorite movies, but his favorite of all was The Mask. He could recite the whole thing word for word, says Tiffany. Now, throughout his childhood, he was an exceptional artist, always being recognized by his teachers. He was also a great cook, and he could inspire people to be a chef. Now, wrapped up in a relationship with his first love, he often cooked for his girlfriend, making her pancakes every morning when they were together. Aw, what a nice guy. The holidays were always a special time for the Baker family. Now, everyone came together to celebrate. I always think he's going to walk through that door, says Tiffany. She longs to hear him say, "What's up, OG?" like he always did. Helping people in his community was just so important to Michael. He often helped an elderly neighbor stop and do her taxes, One time his mom questioned why he was out so late, and his explanation was that he was out reading the Bible to a friend's daughter to help her fall asleep. Now, after joining this church around the age of 14, 15, Michael continued to follow God and model his life in many, many ways around his faith. Now, on the day Michael died, he attended the viewing for a friend who had recently died. Oh, that's terrible. He was hanging out at a house with some other friends and got caught in what is now believed to have been a gang related shooting. His friends was targeted and they thought that, Michael was in the crossfire. He was found the next morning after a woman saw him lying on the sidewalk and thought that he had just passed out. Now, police arrived and confirmed that he had been killed. On July 20th, 2013, Tiffany got the call that her son had been shot in the chest and had died on the scene. The city of Hollywood, excuse me, quickly ran out of answers. A press conference was held in December 2013, and the family has no contact with the detective on the case ever since the initial list of suspects just dwindled down. Everything left as it was moving in slow motion. She has been living in Georgia, or she was living in Georgia when the murder occurred and drove back to Florida immediately upon getting the phone call. Now, in his remembrance, the family goes to Michael's grandmother's house and does a balloon release on the anniversary of his death. They all join together, they get an ice cream cake, and they rejoice in the memories of him. Tiffany often goes through his Facebook memories as a way to capture those moments. Hold on, let me see if I can say this. I want to show you a picture of him when he was little. Tiffany often goes through his Facebook memories as a way to capture the moments in time. Now, Michael was cremated and his ashes were laid to rest in his grandmother's backyard. Aw. An aloe bush grows above his grave, and the family still feel close. Tiffany holds a strong faith in God and knows that with her faith is all she really has through this, and she puts everything in God's hands. If you have any information about the unsolved murder of Michael Barker or Baker, I'm sorry, please contact 954-967-4636. And I want to show you this cute little picture of him when he was little. See if this will let me load. I hope it does. And it's not going to. My goodness. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Huh. Guys, I will keep working on this. It will let me share this. Maybe you'll let me share it this way. There he is. Okay. And this is him whenever he was little. So, I mean, you can, I don't know if you can actually see that. I don't know why it keeps doing that. There he is. Okay. And you can see his love for playing piano. And I'm sure that he was probably playing church hymns. And a lot of people will ask, why does God let this happen? All of this stuff. Guys, you got to keep faith. You just have to. All right. So let me move on to the next one. So next we have Desmond Jones. Now, it was a few days before April 27th, 2011. Let me make sure that shared. It did share. Okay. It was a few days before April 27th, 2011. 13-year-old Desmond Jones was at school with some classmates and his teacher, Mr. Cummings, just goofing around, making conversation and playing music. Desmond turned to Cummings and said, "Man, I just know what it is, but we're going to have fun." Cummings patted Desmond on the head and carried on with his day. A couple days later, Desmond didn't come to school, and he had called Cummings' phone while the teacher was out on the playground with his class. Cummings couldn't answer the phone at the time, and he never got the chance to see what Desmond was actually calling about. On April 27th, 2011, Desmond was shot and killed on Lily Street in Fort Myers, Florida. Now, his murder's never been solved. That year, Desmond was playing in the first season of Pop Warner football as number 64 on the Firecats team. His teammates knew him as Little Flame. Now, Dence Henley, mother of Desmond, and his two older sisters recalled their favorite memories as driving to him to all of his football practices. The excitement they would have in the car. In the car, just me and him, we would chit chat, talking to him like Pop Warner football. Henley said one evening there was an incident where they were doing riding in the car and another car ran through the light and he yelled, "Look, he ran that light." And that never leaves her mind. She reassured him, "Hey, you need to be careful when you drive. There's some people out there that don't pay attention." Well, Stuart laughed, and she would sometimes wait all day to come home and eat leftovers for a long day, but Desmond would have already eaten them. Now, he was just a happy go lucky kid. Stuart loved watching her little brother in the backyard doing dance moves, playing basketball one on one with him. Now, she would also tell his aunt, Cara Jones, "I'm a superstar." And he would agree. She was a superstar. "Yes, you are, little flame," Jones said. "You can be anything you want to be, and I'll be right here to support you, nephew, forever." Now, Jones recalled how much he loved to watch Walker, Texas Ranger, starring Chuck Norris, a show about characters fighting drug lords, corrupt cops, and criminals. The boy, whose favorite lunch was noodles with Gatorade on the side, had never stopped being passionate about the things that he loved: his family, music, dancing, sports, and education. On April 27th, 2011, Desmond was out with so-called friends, boys and girls, on Lily Street in Dunbar community of Fort Myers, Florida. Now, although these are community events held in the area today, the Dunbar community is a rough area. According to Cummins, this was a community where he had grown up. It was once a loving community that came together, but following the drug epidemic in the 90s, it really never returned to the way it was. "A lot of crime happens here," she says. On April 27th, 2011, Desmond was out with his friends and in that area got into an argument about a girl and broke out into a group. Now, everyone in the city was told, Cummings said, that someone in the group pulled out a gun in response to that argument. Now, Desmond and his friend began running away, but when the person had shot and killed Desmond with a fatal shot to the front of the head. Soon after, a friend of Henley's knocked on her door asking where Desmond was. Fearing he might have been shot, Henley's friend drove her to the scene, and that's where she saw her son. God love her. Although there were witnesses and cases initially moved forward, it eventually fell apart, and no one has ever been charged with his murder. See, and we see that so often, and this is exactly why it's so important. Now, Henley and Jones kept Desmond's memory alive by flipping through cherished photos of him, finding comfort in his bright, handsome smile. Henley recalls Desmond's artwork in his bedroom, reflecting his love for the Florida Gators and his honor roll certificates from high school. For 10 years, this wall was red, Henley said. But after 10 years, I had to finally paint it. It is now a tan color. We make sure to keep all his memories alive for his birthdays and other holidays. We wear shirts. Jones owns numerous shirts with pictures of Desmond, capturing some of the best moments and smiles of his whole life. Stewart copes by pursuing her dreams. She thinks to herself, if he were here, he would want me to be the example for him. She walks through her life as though she's leading by example for her little brother. Now, Desmond's family says if he was still here today, he'd be following his dreams too. He'd be owning his own company by now, or maybe he would have gotten an education or a real job or had children. I wish I could have seen him grow up to be a man, to be a teenager, Henley said. Henley just wants justice, but she has forgiven her son's murderer. God can see farther than we can, she said. Anyone with information about Desmond Jones' homicide is asked to call the Fort Myers Police Department at 239-321-7700. My goodness, I mean, that's a lot. She's a good woman. What do you guys think? I mean, she's got to be a very, very strong woman to have forgiven her son's killer. That's that would be a very hard channel to even try to remotely go down. But she did. And God love her for it because I don't know. I don't know that I could. I would try. I would try. Let me get a drink as I go through here, guys. Like I said, I'm having some throat coughing and got the icky. Okay. This little smiling face. This is Joshua Delaney. If a checklist existed of hardships that a family would undergo after a murder, Kay Crawford and her family have checked them all. In the 15 years since her son, Joshua Delaney's murder, the family has been through so much while waiting for this judicial process. News of the suspect in Joshua's case being arrested was incredibly hopeful for Crawford, but also complicated as the subject was jailed into the role in another homicide. Not for Joshua's murder. Crawford is now forced to accept that no one will never pay publicly held accountable for her son's murder. Now the guy that they did suspect, he's already serving time. So really, unless he confesses, she will never get her justice. Now, Kay shares many memories of her son. A kid in one instance, a teen with a great promise, a young man with the verge of stepping into his greatness, all woven into one particular order. Now, Joshua is just now a breeze in her memory, freely flowing, always unexpected. Kay is open to her journey, sharing her son with the masses of the newest generation of Crawfords. Her memorial page is devoted to keeping Joshua's memory alive through updates, pictures, devotions. But for children left in Joshua's shadow, Kay has fought to maintain his imprint and allow for his injection. And for that to just be an inclusion. Joshua's death has had an immense impact on the family. The aftermath for each sibling adjusting to life without their older brother has been painfully witnessed by Crawford. She is certain in her conviction that the life path that the journey of her son's murder has completely ruined this family. Now, open when the homicide often when the homicide occurred, a family has no idea where to turn to or where to find support. Crawford shares this with this project, Cold Case, her idea. While she has a good support let me try this again. While she has a good support system in the family, friends and coworkers go after Joshua's murder. She quickly recognized that in their small community in Colorado Springs, there were no families dealing with a murder. Crawford relied on her own professional wit to aid her in processing grief. Her skills as a system analysis afforded her discipline to research the information gathering on the homicide. It was an opportunity for her to maintain some kind of familiarity, and while self-educating on her own, just she's completely on her own. It was during one of those information gathering sessions that she happened to come across Project Cold Case, where she submitted Joshua's case. Welcome, Frank. Project Cold Case works hard to educate the public on the unique stressors and issues of families dealing with a cold case homicide. So here's a recap of recent conversations our office had with Kay Crawford. Project Cold Case. How was the arrest and incarceration of the subject in your son's case? Not due to his murder, but to another crime. Kay Crawford answers, excuse me. The impact on me and my family is that our judicial system is flawed. And as we know, however, in definition, justice is the legal theory where families are just administered. With that being said, justice has not been served in my son's murder. It saddens me that the suspect committed two other murders, which is currently serving a 33-year sentence. I like to think that perhaps karma has come to visit him and others who I believe that were involved, but karma is in the universe response to every action and every reaction. So that's just justice if you're dealt out by man. This is a very heartbreaking case with a strong, strong mother. On March 28th, 2015, Joshua Josh Delaney was at our first case submission from someone we didn't know. Within hours of our site going live, Josh's family reached out for help. It's a scenario we hope to duplicate many times. If you have a lost loved one to an unsolved homicide, please submit their case and info to the case submission page on the Project Cold Case page. Josh was only 22 years old. He was engaged to be married and the father of a 4-year-old little girl. Now she grows up without a dad. A mother had to bury her son. Family members and friends are left to pick up the devastating pieces left by another senseless act of violence. And although this man is serving other life sentences, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that there's justice for him. If you have any information on Josh's case, no matter how big or small, I ask you to call 719-444-7000. What a heartbreaking story. And look at his smile. Doesn't he just have the cutest smile? He just seems like such a kind guy. I mean, really. Sorry guys, I don't mean to ignore you in chat. I'm kind of drinking coffee here at the same time, so if you hear me slurping on coffee, it's me. I am curious what y'all are doing up so late though. See, I tried not to slip on coffee or slurp on coffee that time, but that is a bad habit I do. And this is Patrick Mullen. Okay, just a moment. I do have an unfortunate habit of vaping, and I don't like to vape while I'm live, but that was fast. Okay, so this is Patrick Mullen, and he also has a kind but firm face, for sure. So, this story is part of a collaborative project between Project Cold Case and the University of North Florida's Applied Journalism class. From a young age, Patrick Pat Mullins loved growing up on the water of Florida's west coast. So great with his passion on so great with the passion for a life of water that he later purchased a home along Manatee County's Braden River. Pat wanted to share his enthusiasm for enjoying nature. Hi, Aurora. Boating and restoring old outboards with his sons, Mason and Miles. Now, each of our sons had a small boat Pat fixed up for them whenever they were in elementary school. Jill Mullins, his wife, Mason painted the bow of the boat to resemble the P-40 airplane. Now, with that menacing shark teeth on it, Miles weighed so little that his boat would tilt about 80 degrees before it would settle to a plane. Now, Pat dreamed of being a grandfather, fostering a love and appreciation of boating and the outdoors and the next generation. The opportunity to see those memories and have those precious moments with his grandchildren were taken from him on January 2013 when Pat failed to return from what was supposed to be a routine test drive on an old boat motor. Just one day after his disappearance, the empty little boat was discovered adrift in Edgemont Channel far from the Mullins home. 8 days later, Pat's body was located near where Manatee River and Tampa Bay merge. According to the medical examiner's report, he died from a shotgun wound to the side of his head. He had been tied to the anchor and rope. Over a decade later, his murder is still unsolved. Can you believe that? Wow. In many ways, Pat was a perfectionist who loved his family, his career, and his boating. A third of lo- a third of five children, Pat developed an interest in boats and boat motors in his youth. Growing up on Anna Maria Island meant the water was a gateway for Pat and his two brothers. The boys essentially taught themselves how to repair old outboard motors, and neighbors would happily pass them to them. Now, majored in elementary education school and marched in the Gator Band while finding time to work at home at the marina during college. Juggling the professional education career and the beloved pastime of working on engines, that led Pat to a balance to different lifestyles. This perfectionist side of him took over at work. He would always wear a tie. He would always motivate his students to work their hardest. According to his wife on the weekends, he would be up to his elbows in grease when he found that he needed to run the parts at the store. He'd come from the garage, shower, painstakingly remove the grease from under his fingernails just because he might run into one of his fourth graders. Aw. On January 27, 2013, Pat took his boat out for what was supposed to be a quick trip. Pat owned a small, shallow water boat known as Stum Knocker, and with this perfect size to go out on Braden River, an offshoot of the significantly large Manatee River. No stranger to this narrow river, Pat set off. One last sail. When Pat failed to return home later that evening, Jill Mullins contacted the Manatee County Sheriff's Office to report him missing. The following morning, the skiff was seen by a vessel traveling along the Edgemont Channel. That same day, the United States Coast Guard brought the boat to shore. Now, the stump knocker's ignition was on, and Pat's hat and sunglasses were on boat, but both Pat and the boat's anchor were missing, and there were no obvious signs of struggle. The sheriff's office released the boat to the family immediately. I also want to save this image for you so you can see this one too. He seems like such a fun guy. When Pat's boat was found, it had traveled northeast of Edgemont Key toward the Gulf of Mexico, miles away from Braden River, where it had been docked. Let's see if I can get this loaded in, and you guys will kind of see. I think this kind of explains exactly who he was, if it will load. There he is. And I could see that, as a fourth grade teacher, it, how sad. He dedicated his life for his country. He is just, that's so sad to me. And this isn't the end of it. This is just the beginning because there's so many more. And that's the saddest part about this is that each day everyone likes to argue, everyone likes to start drama, everyone likes to do all this stuff, but at the end of the day, it's a life. It's a human being. It's very heartbreaking. Okay, we have Timothy. And actually I think I messed Timmy up with, yeah, I messed him up with Tarius. Okay, so we have Tarius. Mindy Dawson's Keith will never forget her brother to Tulsa welding school on his first day. Now she'll never forget how his face lit up when a counselor asked him if he wanted to what he wanted to be in life. Now Tarius Dawson sat in his sister's left side, a smile on his face, and he said he wanted to have a long life. He wanted a house with a garage. He wanted wife, kids. He had plans. He had goals, and he'll never reach them. Dawson was murdered just before midnight on September 5th, 2013, but by the time the police had arrived to the scene, the person who shot him in the head had fled. The only thing the police had found was stray shell casings, which officers have determined were not the shooters. Rose Priscilla Baker, Dawson's mother, believes that justice is inescapable for the person who murdered her son. Now, they may have escaped the law, she says, but they have not escaped God. Dawson was shot while he was walking to his car on the 400th block of Leland Street, just minutes away from his home, on the 600th block of Fitzgerald Street. There are witnesses, and the detectives have identified a person of interest, according to Rochelle Starling of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. However, JSO would not give any other information as to who that person could be, and this investigation is still ongoing. And sometimes I feel like when they say ongoing, it just means you can't get any of the records because the case is open. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be that way, but that's absolutely how I feel about this. Baker remembers her son as a bit of a loner as a child, but one who always looked out for other people. He always loved his family. He loved young people. He loved his brothers, his sisters, and they loved him, and they miss him to this day. One of the sisters, Dawson's only sibling to share the same mother and father, was born and raised in Jacksonville. Now, the siblings were only a year apart, and Skeeth says that they shared a very, very close bond. Their father wasn't involved in their lives as much as he needed to be, so Taurus was kind of like the man of the house. Dawson and Sheath had a stepfather, but Sheath still sees her brother as her guardian, excuse me, and her best friend. She recalls a time during her childhood when both her brothers have saved her life. Now, if you have any information on this at all, of what happened to Tarius, please get a hold of law enforcement immediately. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, get a hold of Project Cold Case and they can direct you in the right direction. That is a very horrible story. I mean, it just to think, it's horrible. It is. Okay, so we have Gerald. I know I have Gerald up here. Sorry, guys. Sometimes it doesn't want to show me. Okay, so we're going to work our way the other way. And we went through this one. and went through Patrick, Larry. That's who we're looking for. Actually, it's Jerry. We have Gerald Williams was known as a kind-hearted, goofy person who was truly loved by his family. If he could give you anything to help you out, he wouldn't hesitate. Now, Jared loved to help local elders. He would often help them across the street, even go grocery shopping for them, his mom said. He was just a good man. He could brighten up anyone's day from just talking to him. Beverly Williams said, and her older brother. Gerald was born a middle child, and as an older brother who had passed, and Gerald was younger, so it was just him and his little sister. Beverly, Gerald was the kind of kid who was all over the place and full of energy. Out of all three, he would always play jokes on people, Dolores said. Hmm, sounds like some other few people we know. The two siblings shared a love for sports, including being fans of Chicago Bulls and Dallas Cowboys. When we were younger, Gerald dreamed of being a football player. Gerald taught me how to play basketball, and I actually ended up playing in school on December 11th, 2002. Hi, Meg. Thank you for joining in. When the two women shortly arrived after midnight, they discovered that Gerald was unconscious and listed in critical condition. Now, having he had been shot in the head, his condition quickly deteriorated, and he was removed from life support. I always say it that way. Gerald was at a friend's house on the north side of Jacksonville. Investigators have been tight-lipped regarding the situation, and the Williams family has been giving conflicting stories from all witnesses and locals about what has happened that night. Now, Gerald Williams was 28 years old when he succumbed to his injuries. He was a father of three children, and at the time of his death, those three kids needed their dad. Following his passing, Williams' longtime girlfriend Kimberly Strotter gave birth to their fourth child. Dolores Williams said she feels joy when she sees her grandchildren and great grandchildren because they all have a piece of Gerald. You can look at them and tell that they're all Gerald's children, she said. It's just his features. Now, to be a great grandmother now, his grandson, I call him my main. He walks like him, he talks like him, he acts like him, he looks like him. It's just so fulfilling, she says. Now, you never know if the person you're standing next to at the grocery store could have done it. You don't know if that person goes to church with you. All they want is to have closure for the loss of their loved one and the pain that they have been enduring through all of these years. If you have any information about what has happened to Gerald, please contact 904-255-2626. What a sad, sad story. It's crazy. It's so sad to think, and honestly, in all fairness, that's exactly kind of how things go. You really don't know. You don't know who's sitting next to you. You don't know if it's the person in church that may take your life. If it's someone at the grocery store. How would you know, right? Very heartbreaking. Very. I'm trying to see why this is not loading. I'm sure I did something. I'm always hitting buttons. I apologize, guys. Give me just a minute. Because, like I said, I do hit buttons. I'm always hitting buttons. Okay. I'm a button pusher. Frank says, we don't know who Aurora is. You don't? Well, she seems like a pretty nice gal. You better behave. Okay, so we have Jacob Landon. And you hear me pause as I'm getting a drink of coffee, of course. Jacob Landon. Oh, isn't he just adorable? He's absolutely the cutest baby. My goodness. But it doesn't end well. The tragic story of baby Jacob Landon is not your typical cold case. Jacob was a giggly, fearless baby with a big personality who didn't make it to his first birthday. He was killed at 9 months old. This one's going to make us furious. In the more than 36 years since Jacob's death, Jacob's killer has never been brought to justice. Unlike many cold cases, however, his family hasn't spent the last 3 decades wondering who is responsible for this. Rather, the unanswered questions is why that person hasn't been brought to justice at all. Now, Jacob had a big personality for a baby. His older brother Eric says that he said in an interview, even though through the phone, Eric's smile was plainly evident when he would talk about Jacob. I prayed for my baby brother to be born, and when I found out my mom was pregnant, it was one of the happiest days of my life. I was ecstatic. I was running around yelling and screaming. I was 6 years old when Jacob died. Even after all this time, Eric still gets emotional when talking about Jacob. It is in 9 short months of life. It's clear that this little boy managed to leave an inedible mark, just crazy mark on this heart of this family member. And that's so awesome to be that young. Jacob died in 1987, and the Carter Landon family feels that the person responsible for his death is obvious. Nevertheless, justice has never been served for this beautiful, vivacious baby boy. Excuse me. He was fun, Eric said. He was such a joy and a lot of crazy energy. Cater, Carter Landon's recollections of his brother described him as a bit of a baby bulldozer. Their mom had to keep up a wind up swing pushed up against the wall because Jacob has a habit of pulling into a heap and then laying on the ground and laughing, thinking it was hilarious. Now, suddenly, though, injuries started appearing on Jacob, and they were serious issues like skull fractures. At one point, the baby was hospitalized due to blunt force trauma, and the head and doctors had to drain blunt front blunt force trauma to the head, and the doctors had to drain fluid built up in his brain. Oh, these were not bumps and bruises of an energetic toddler. Mm, okay, here we go. At the time, the man the boy's mom was dating tried to blame 6-year-old Eric for hurting his brother. According to Carter Landon, no one brought this rational and even for 1 minute to be cautious. His mom decided to send him to visit to California, but the injuries didn't stop. One day when Eric was with his dad, Jacob left him in his care of his mom's boyfriend for an hour while she was wrapping up a shift at work. Jacob's grandmother had originally been watching him, but needed to go to church, so the decision was made that the boyfriend would keep the baby for a short while. His injuries were so severe at the hospital in New Mexico that New Mexico was not equipped to care for him and had airlifted him to Albuquerque again. Jacob's injuries were so severe that the second hospital was just, they couldn't do it. They couldn't save him. Jacob didn't make it through the surgery. He died that night. What happened after Jacob died is more puzzling than the tragic death itself. His case was investigated by police. Carter Landon's mom, grandmother, and his mom's boyfriend were all interviewed by these authorities. At one point, he did explain the case file indicates that the boyfriend was set to take a polygraph test, but because he confessed to the crime, there was none. But there's no transcript of a confession. There's no written confession. There's no audio recording. There's no signed anything. Now, there's nothing to indicate that he confessed to what circumstances this confession was given under. Now, I don't understand how there's a confession and guess what, guys? They didn't even arrest him. The mom's boyfriend was the person allegedly caring for Jacob when he sustained the life-threatening injuries, or at least according to the case file. He was confused and being responsible for his death. For some reason, though, no charges were ever filed in this case and no arrests were ever made. If something like that bothered me for a long time, Eric said, I just really don't understand why nothing was done. It doesn't make any sense. We were gaslit by authorities, he continued. We were treated like we were crazy. I can't prove any of this is some kind of conspiracy, but it's really bizarre. Eric, who hosts a podcast about Jacob's case and others, is called True Consequences, firmly believes the man who killed his brother was protected by friends and the police force. Wow. We were in a really bad place in New Mexico in terms of child welfare. Every child abuse and crime bill that came to the state Senate that year was labeled, every single one would would blame the sky. Now, the sad state of the child welfare in New Mexico aside, it seems Carter Landon's quest for justice for his little brother may bear fruit. For the first time in more than 30 years, Jacob's case has been reopened to the Attorney General, which gives them little bit of hope, but not a lot. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up until the attorney general says that they can't do anything. Even then, I believe I'm still going to go pushing along and still fight for change for the state. And I think that's what inspires me the most. And that's what keeps me going. That's horrible. Have you guys ever heard of a case like that? That is crazy. This poor baby. And they blame that 6-year-old brother and sent him to California thinking that he did it. And in all honesty, it was that boyfriend the whole time. That is absolutely heartbreaking. My God. Mm-mm. We have some strong families here. Very, very strong families here. Okay, we have Selena. December was always Selena's favorite month. Now, she loved to entertain friends during the holidays. Her wedding anniversary was New Year's Eve. It was the best day of the year to her. Selena hasn't been able to celebrate anything in 40 years. On August 16th, 1979, she was shot and killed in Queens Village, New York. Her murder still remains unsolved to this day. Selena grew up in Colombia, and that's where she became a nurse and met her husband, Louis. Now, Selena was assigned to bring Louis out of surgery toward the end of her shift. However, she was interested meeting him once he regained consciousness. So she switched shifts with the next person so she could be there when he woke up. Well, I guess that's dedication. The rest is history, says Selena's only daughter. The two got married in Colombia and then moved to Queens Village. It was there that Louisa was born. Now, Louisa said their parents' relationship was always what she kind of aspired it to have. My father always had my mother on a pedestal, she recalled. Her parents would always wait for one another to eat dinner so they could recount the day together. Selena and Louis adored their daughter. They attended all of her recitals at school events, always sitting front and center. While Selena was only 5'2", she was always the loudest in the room, cheering for her daughter every day she could. Every birthday, she was awoken with her parents singing happy birthday. They would sing it every year without fail, and it was always a little laughter thing. Frank says maybe mom was in fear for her safety. That may be, but as a mother, I will go down protecting my child. I'll just say that. I don't want to victim blame. That's not who I am, but victim or not, you're going to get my kid, you're going to get me too. The family of three would travel to Colombia every summer to vacation. They would often stay in this fine house on a farm in the mountains. They would visit family, go to the river, play games all summer long. It was a time of total bliss. Well, at the time of Louisa described her mother as a nice, caring, loving, and helpful person. The trio would go see the Rockettes each year. One year, even though it was freezing outside, Selena took off her gloves and gave them to someone in need. Now, Louisa questioned why, but her mother replied, I could always get another. At that time of her death, Selena had two jobs. During the day, she worked at a Standard Motors factory, and at night, she worked doing commercial cleaning. Now, on August 16th, 1979, Selena went to deposit a check at the Jamaica Avenue in Queens Village at 10 p.m., right after her night shift. From there, the details of the incident are undetermined. According to the New York Police Department, Selena's body was discovered in her car with two gunshot wounds to the head. The passenger side window was completely down, and there was one bullet hole in the front windshield of the car. Police said it was unclear whether the killer was ever inside the car. It is unknown whether Selena had ever stepped out of the car during the encounter. Police did not have any information about this at all. Hey, Mustang, thank you for joining. Louisa woke up early that next morning and knew something was off. There were dozens of people filling her living room, and none of them were her mother. So a nun quickly took her to school. Once there, school officials explained that her mother had deceased. Now, Louisa could not believe her mother was gone. To this day, police just don't know how many specifics from that night, Selena's murder, and the case has just gone unsolved for 40 years if they have any evidence left. Louisa hasn't given up trying to figure out who has killed the most important person in her life. If you have any information about Selena's murder, please contact the Project Cold Case, or you can dial 718-574-1796. Oh, that's horrible. Goodness. And there are so many of these cold cases, guys. It's unreal. I mean, I could sit here forever and ever and just keep reading them, but at the same time, I mean, they mainly end just exactly the same way. A lot of times these happened 40 years ago and the evidence is gone. And by that point, what do they have to hold on to but God? And a lot of people will ask me, and I had one person that I actually used to co-host with that said, "Well, how come your daddy in the sky didn't save you?" But little did he know, he did. So it's kind of one of those deals. And I'm not going to get off in all religion and all that stuff, but I'm just saying, guys, don't take life for granted. Make the call. Be nice to the family member that you just can't stand, because you know what? Life is short and you don't want to hold that. You don't want to hold on to that forever. Kindness is free. Compliments are free. So as human beings, I can just ask that maybe tomorrow compliment a stranger. Be nice to somebody that you really don't like. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to kill you. But it may make your day. And with that being said, I've been on almost an hour now, just rambling on, and I can't thank you guys enough for being here with me. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you would hit like and share, I greatly appreciate it. If you don't want to hit like and you just want to hit dislike, that's okay too. It's whatever. But I just hope that you guys get a great night's sleep. Thanks, guys, for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
In a world that turns too fast, some are lost, left in the past. But we won't let silence win. We'll speak their names again. Voices rising through the dark. Every story leaves a mark. We are the ones who won't forget. The fight for truth is not done yet. We shine the light, we raise the call. For the missing, the broken, we stand tall. For justice, for healing, for